there.
everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Quast II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy. And we are back with another episode of the Wright Quality Podcast. Friends, co-host, special co-host. We will get into that introduction in a minute, but y'all should be very familiar. Very popular face that we're lucky to have on the pod. But regular co-host, please remind the people of who you are first and foremost.
Don't deem me regular.
Oh my goodness. I was just saying you weren't co-host for the day. That's all I was getting at.
Gosh.
Extraordinary co-host. First,
Thank
remind the
you.
people who you are.
Yes, Ashley Wright the first of my name, the one and only.
Ganger.
Just a regular dude. Miguel. But you know what it is. You know what we're here for. Come on now. You heard the intro.
Crying. And then our very special co-host. Please remind the people of who you are and welcome back to the pod.
Welcome back. Excited to be back. Josh Price of the Price Check in the Zone show. It's been a long time, but came to get these takes off, man.
Gotta get these takes off. But man, we are in March, and March Madness has officially begun. And man, after the first weekend of the tournament, we did get our madness. It might have been a little bit delayed for some. Maybe it wasn't enough for others, but I think we got a really good taste of just enough madness in March. But what were you all's takeaways or thoughts from, this first weekend, the round of 64 and the round of 32? For the men specifically, to start out with.
Yeah, very fun. I'm gonna be honest though, I didn't think that there were many Cinderella stories. But still always fun to have a full day of basketball. Enjoyed pretty much every game. I like that a number of them were close to start off. Usually, some people feel like the tournament doesn't start till the second round, but I had fun watching them.
I was gonna leave it up. So what's the prize? Come on now. We gotta treat our guests right. What you got?
So for me, I think that yes, there are less Cinderellas, but I think that is a byproduct of us having access to every game from the jump. Quiet as it's kept, March Madness was much better when you had one channel and they just plugged you into the game when it got good versus us expecting Cinderellas to come out of nowhere, because of course everybody fills out their bracket. Everybody kind of thinks, okay, well, these types of matchups are usually what produces the upsets. NIL and transfer portal era, we kind of got to throw that out the window a little bit. I think you're going to start to see Cinderellas look a lot different now. It's going to be a lot less of mid-majors going super deep into the tournament, and there's going to be a lot more of your Texases and Iowas of the world where they were like underperforming Power 5 teams. But when you actually get them into a tournament environment, they can exceed expectations because they know how to get hot for a game.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the games. I had High Point beating them Wisconsin. Other than that, I'm ranked 20th in a league of 22. So not too much to talk on in terms of knowing ball right now, but fun games. Notably, Iowa, Florida, High Point, Wisconsin, and then that St. John's game was crazy, and the Kansas game was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, St. John's versus Kansas was that? Yeah, sorry. Oh my.
To your High Point point, I was so close because for y'all that don't know, me and Miguel, I feel like we agree when this. Clearly, you can see how he feels. You can't trust Wisconsin sports teams. Clearly,
no.
You cannot.
No.
Wisconsin as a basketball program, long gone are the days where Kaminsky and Sam Decker were in the championship. Everything since then has been a disappointment. So when I tell you I was seconds away from saying, you know what, off the pure distrust in Wisconsin, I might take High Point. I didn't. I thought, you know what, Wisconsin will get this game barely, which they almost did, and they'll lose to Arkansas the next round, right? That's what I thought was going to happen. Should have went with the High Point.
And shout out
that go on.
No, I was going to say, shout out High Point, led by two St. Louis stars. Cam Fletcher went to Vashon, and Rob Martin went to CBC, playing with Caleb Love.
Rob was hooping.
He was.
Hooping.
Big St. Louis energy in that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What? But Wisconsin will always make a deep run when Marquette is in the tourney and they have a really, really good year. And then it makes you hurt even more because you don't even really root for Wisconsin. And Marquette looks great through and through. And then they just get knocked.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. But I digress. I saw it coming. Everything else did not, obviously.
But another point about High Point as well, I liked what their coach said, and it's kind of to your point about mid majors, Josh. I think the thing with mid majors is I think there are a lot of mid majors you could consider High Point, even when you think of the story of like Miami, Ohio this year as well. I think if you see a lot more mid majors play high level talent and play like Power Five schools, I think throughout the course of a season, not saying that it has to be deeply embedded in their schedule, but I think if you saw them play more schools of that nature, whether it be in their out of conference schedule or what have you, if you saw that during the regular season more, it wouldn't feel like such a surprise in the tournament. Because to your point, I think the beauty of the tournament is literally like if there's a team you haven't scouted or haven't had to prepare for all season, you never know what they're going to throw at you. So it's literally, you have to win to survive. So you can't overlook a team. I think a perfect case of that was Duke versus Siena. I have thoughts on that. I'll get to that in a second. But
That happens, man.
the coach's point about basically Power Fives finding out about mid majors I thought was great, and I think that's great for March, but I think that's great for the sport in general, and I hope that in some way, form, or fashion these mid majors who may not be able to get athletes because of NIL and things like that still get the opportunity to play those teams and be seen on those platforms. So players can get those opportunities, whether it's at those mid majors or the opportunity to transfer somewhere else just because they're being seen more. So I hope that happens. But I think that was a really good point that the High Point coach made after they beat Wisconsin. But, to that Duke Siena point, that was the first game I think of the tournament that I watched throughout. So that was one of the Thursday games.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Duke is lucky. Duke better thank they lucky stars because if the Siena coach, if GMAC, right, let me put some respect on his name, right, if GMAC had trusted anybody on his bench for 3 or 4 minutes of the
Man.
I truly think Siena is walking away with that game. Maybe not handily, but I think they're able to like close the game out without Duke being able to just kind of overpower them at the end because their starters are gassed, right? But again, you got these whether it's higher seed, whether it's blue bloods, but sometimes they go into the tourney thinking about those first 2 rounds as cakewalks, because it's a team they haven't seen or some team from some division or some conference, I should say, that nobody cares about, and anybody can get got. The beauty of March, but yeah, that Duke Siena game was one that stood out. Iowa, Florida stood out. I don't know if y'all saw that last play. We can talk about it if y'all did, but if not,
Dribbling into a crowd and not getting a shot up.
no, well, yes,
Or the
Corner
press
three?
that led to an open corner three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that one.
Why?
Yeah, Miguel, from a coach's perspective,
Yes.
walk us through this. Walk us through this.
And real
I'm camping
quick.
at half. I'm camping at half, and I'm muddying it up as soon as they cross. Like
Yeah.
to make it a track meet, and then to have a Dolo guy in back try and mark two, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Unless the press has been working all game, which it didn't. I don't know. Like it's not like the Bill Self decision of fouling every other second to dwindle the time down and then just getting burnt on a quick burst to the rim. Like these are two vastly different coaching decisions that led to the same result, unfortunately. And yeah, I don't know. Like, not to say that the game wasn't coached well before that, but that's a glaring oopsies, if you want to call it anything. But yeah.
Well, I think it's also an example of something we've seen every year, March Madness. You get some of these coaches, to Steve's point, of getting into round of 64, round of 32, and kind of feeling a little bit more comfortable than you should. Whether that's teams that are coached by guys who maybe have not coached in those big moments or against, tougher competition, or what we saw in the Duke game, you led by freshmen. And we all know that some of the worst decision makers on the planet are 18 and 19-year-old kids, whether they are men or women. And so I think, the tournament brings out the best of all of these matchups because you get so much unpredictability and so much of these different styles that make fights to where you can see Duke getting pushed to the brink by a Siena team that just has an outstanding coach. You have High Point where you have guys who are just fearless because of the environments that they've been in. It's real interesting to see how those differences in those matchups can kind of make the difference game to game. Because even like a team like Florida, I didn't necessarily believe Florida was going to win the tournament. I had them actually losing in the Sweet 16, but to lose in the fashion that you did against Iowa was a little bit unacceptable.
For sure. Kind of back to the point that Josh that you made about Cinderellas and that looking different. I think that's a great point because I was even kind of saying before we started recording how I think Cinderella is being defined differently, really basically because of what you said. It's not always these mid majors and these low seeds that make these deep runs, but it could be these teams that Tennessee is an example of something that could be considered a abnormal or unorthodox Cinderella. But I even kind of look at a team like Nebraska, right? Like, they're seeded 5, but I don't think many people had them beating Vandy. And it's not to say that Nebraska's not a respectable program, but I think even a 5 or 6 seeded team that maybe doesn't have the expectations as some of these other programs could still be defined as a Cinderella in this new age of basketball. But to your point of some of those like low, like, major kind of like Power Fives or those programs that are D1, but kind of, don't have the respect as like the Power Five schools, when you're able to take some of these players and now get players with NIL money to come to these schools and give them a chance to actually now build a team around them and perform, you see them making deeper runs potentially in March Madness. But yeah, if you want to kind of expound and if anybody else wants to add on those thoughts about how the term Cinderella is being redefined in this age of March Madness and college basketball, I think that's a really good topic and very relevant to what we're seeing in real time here.
I think a lot of people are holding on to their previous definition of a Cinderella. So, like that St. Peter's team that we saw, or UMBC beating the #1 Virginia team at the time. And they're trying to use that term for Texas this year. And Texas is an 11 seed. However, where I see issue with that is Texas is a program that has the NIL money. Like for me, a Cinderella team is a team that's given 200K to this guy and 500K max to the star player, and they making it do what it do. You know what I mean? Those are the Cinderella stories to me, not the 4s and 5 stars that you got making up your team.
No, I'd agree with that. I think that, looking at the SLU team that I got a chance to cover this season, right? You got a bunch of guys who were either at the ends of benches at other programs that are in, bigger conferences that decided to come down, or you got these developmental guys that maybe weren't the highest ranked recruits out of high school, but they come into an environment like SLU with Coach Serves and they're able to blossom, right? That is more of your traditional sense of Cinderella. I think the reason it's going to be a lot harder to find teams like that in the way the tournament is set up now. You've almost made it to where, with how guys transfer and how they move around, very rarely are you going to be able to get all of the factors to meet up at once to where you get not only the team with the playing style that's going to be able to win some tournament games, but also the personnel. Because that's the other thing, right? With some of these transfer portal guys, not all of your star players are just going to the next school to try to take a team that is a little bit lesser talented and bring them up. Most part, you got guys that maybe couldn't make the rotation in one place that is constantly getting NIL transfer portal turnover, and now they have to come into a different environment to where, yes, they are extremely talented, but they still weren't quite at that level to really, be a difference maker in those Power 5 games or against those Power 5 teams. So I think the way that is going to kind of continue to play out, you're going to have to get one of those kind of all of the right things kind of hit at the same time to where, again, using SLU as an example, they went out and they absolutely destroyed Georgia. Georgia, a pretty flawed SEC team that, you can make the argument they might have even been overseeded as an 8 seed when we think about teams like Texas being an 11. But then you see SLU play against Michigan, and it's like it is a very clear difference in both talent level, physicality, coaching. Definitely, I think Coach Scherz, amazing coach, had an amazing season. So I don't want to shortchange him there. But when you just look at the rosters, there's a very clear line of demarcation between the type of player that Michigan has and the type of player that SLU was able to bring in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Following that game, I kind of talked about how Michigan is very versatile in a lot of positions. And they're kind of like a special case because I think even compared to other Power Four, Power Five schools, they're even more versatile than your Iowa States and, a lot of those big names. So that's a good point, Josh, in the sense that I mean, the talent level, like, yeah, you can go out and recruit the highest talent, but sometimes at the mid-major level, it's all about kind of like that chemistry and that camaraderie alongside being coached well. Again, I'm thinking to that St. Peter's team that was just molded so correctly. And I think that was even before NIL, but man, it definitely plays a part.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just thinking through like even before like St. Peter's. I'm thinking even like back to like the Lehighs of like CJ McCollum, right?
Yeah.
You are usually talking about from a Cinderella standpoint, a team that is mostly led by seniors, a coach that has probably been there for a few years. There's some kind of like continuity, institutional knowledge of okay, this is how we play, this is how we're at our best. Whereas I just don't think in the era of the portal, you don't really have that amount of time to allow guys to gel and build. And for the guys who do want to do that, again, you might be dealing with guys that are just not at the talent level to be able to get you, into the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight at this point.
And to the portal point, because I want to make a point about the portal, and then I want to get into difference makers as y'all both spoke to. But I think the portal, that's the oxymoron that it is, and the double-edged sword that it is when it comes to college basketball, right? Like I think when NIL was introduced and when the portal was introduced, I don't think there were too many basketball fans that thought it was a bad idea or thought that athletes and student athletes and players didn't deserve to have that ability or that opportunity, if you will, because we've seen so many situations where a player goes to a school and gets buried because they don't have the ability to transfer. They get stuck, within coaching changes and what have you, and their college career gets derailed for things out of their control. So giving them some control back, saying, hey, you can transfer XYZ for a better opportunity sounds great in theory. And I'm not saying that the theory is bad. However, to you all's point, I think we also see that side where sheesh. Okay, now we're dealing with players who don't want to build a legacy at a program or who don't want to stick with a coach so that continuity can be built and that can exist for sustainability. Because I think when you think about building continuity within a program, your hope is that you can have multiple players there for multiple years so things can now get passed down, not just from a coaching level, but players can also pass things down to players that are coming through the program. But you don't have that now when every year, like we starting to see more and more players have 4 or 5 years of eligibility at 4 or 5 different schools. And in essence, if that's your journey, that's your journey. Again, I don't want to knock what may have happened because there are a lot of extenuating circumstances that play a role, but I think it's also kind of a downside because you see a lot of programs not be able to be consistent or not be able to, and I think it's more consistency than sustainability because I think once certain programs reach a certain point, even if you're talking Power Four, even if you're talking mid-major, like most of them just plateau. You don't see too many like really regress, like they just kind of plateau at a certain level versus when you see programs consistently be able to be excellent. Like I think that's a huge difference. But to the difference maker point, that kind of brings me to a question. How are we defining difference maker, or how are you all defining difference maker? And is a difference maker somebody that applies to across whatever level, or are difference makers essentially only going to be at that Power Five level because those are the players that actually move the needle from the standpoint of being able to take a program somewhere. Because I guess my counter, quote unquote, to that would be how many Power Fives or like these blue blood programs have only like one difference maker. Most of those teams have two or three difference makers to where if you took the second or third option from that team and put them somewhere else, we could potentially see them be a difference maker. So how do y'all kind of make that distinction, kind of based on what y'all were talking about earlier in terms of how it looks on different levels? Because I do agree there are levels to it. So I don't want to, discount that.
So I think for me, it's like if you have again, let's use SLU as an example. Robbie Avila is the A10 Conference Player of the Year, an extremely talented player, extremely versatile player offensively. He's the type of guy that is a difference maker in the sense that he's going to elevate your floor, right?
Okay.
The difference when you think about where the Power Five schools are in today's system, you kind of have the flexibility to bring in some of those difference makers at that level and make them just another part of the bunch at Michigan, for instance.
Mhm.
Whereas you think of a Yax, Lindenborg, he was a UAB Conference Player of the Year at UAB. That team wasn't great, but now he's at Michigan. He's playing at the same level, but he's also playing with other guys that are a little bit higher caliber to where, okay, now instead of me just getting a team to the tournament, now our ceiling is Final Four or better. So I think that's kind of where I'm getting at in terms of the difference in levels. Is Robbie Avila and Yax Lindenberg the same exact level player? Probably not. Lindenberg probably a little bit more physical, a little bit more athletic, can do some more things that way. But when you think about if you were role reversing and you put those two players on opposite teams, Michigan's probably going just as far with Robbie, whereas St. Louis may not quite be at the same level or may not be able to get over that hump just because they have the more physically talented player.
Yeah. And that was a similar example I was going to use with Janai Broome when he went from
Yeah.
McNeese to Auburn. And he was surrounded by players that can now match his way of elevating a game. So I do think it's all about who you're surrounded by, too, that also makes you a difference maker.
And you got guys like Zuby Ejiofor, which go from Kansas to St. John's, and
Mhm.
then beats their old team, you know, right after. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Transfer portal, what happens there? There is the good of that happening, but then I feel like you guys have already pointed it out. I don't have to say much, but yeah, just the ills of like any guy coming out of high school. There is little to like no chance if you get in there late. It's like there's already guys in transfer portal, red shirting from different spots, like, you know, so you better be cream of the crop if you're coming out of a high school class nowadays. Because otherwise it's like you got to JUCO it up, and even there it's getting busy now too.
For sure.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how this continues to evolve in the landscape of college basketball. Before we move on from the Cinderella aspect, were there any other Cinderellas that you all kind of that might fall under the bill in the way that we've been defining them, or just any teams that have impressed you through the first round so far that you think might actually make a deeper run than some expected?
I think Illinois has a shot. I think they have a really good shot. I'm blanking on the freshman's name. Starts with a W, I think.
Wagner.
Him.
Yeah.
Woo-wee. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Then they've got that Croatian guy on the team too. A lot of weird names on that team, but I'm just looking at
Hey,
how
Deja's son is
complete
the
that
truth too. Yeah.
Andre, I don't know if
Mhm.
the J is silent. I don't know, but on the floor, he knocks it down. So he is a beast as well. They are a complete team along the lines of a Michigan. I'm not saying they're as good as Michigan, but I do think that I don't even want to call them a sleeper because they're a 3 seed, but they're a team that a lot of people aren't naming that can make a deeper run.
Yeah, see, I like Illinois. I think the hard part for them is just having to run up against that Houston team in the Sweet 16.
Houston,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm all in on Darius Acuff at Arkansas, man.
You are.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm all in.
All right.
I've seen enough. I've watched the game tapes.
Hey.
It is. Of course, the John Calipari of it all is probably gonna make this sound even more crazy than what it needs to be. But it's a lot of Derrick Rose to him, and I really don't say that lightly because I do know that Derrick Rose was a 101. But if you could drop Derrick Rose off in 2026 as maybe less athletic but better shooter, I think Acuff is absolutely that. You've seen the stories kind of start to circulate now, how he's kind of rising into like that top 3, top 5 range of the draft.
Yeah.
I personally think if he don't go top 3 in the draft, somebody's getting fired.
I do think that he's the reason Boogie Flan left. He knew.
Yeah, he saw it right on the wall.
He knew.
So Acuff is a sophomore?
He's a freshman.
Freshman.
Oh.
Boogie Flan went to Florida, never played with Acuff, so.
Yeah, he knew what type of time that was going.
He knew.
But Acuff is the truth. And while we on it, let's as a retired point guard myself, let's focus on the point guards because I'm high on a lot of them. Acuff is one of them. I'm high on Houston a lot because of Kingston Fleming. Big fan of him. I heard the name, but it wasn't until the Vandy, Nebraska game that I realized just how nice Tyler Tanner is. Great guard. Can't wait to see him continue to develop as well. If he develops his body into any form of a somewhat league ready problem. But no, Acuff is the tournament makes a lot of it creates a lot of stock for sure. And I was going to segue into talking about some of the projected picks that have been the conversation of the top 3 picks for the majority of this season. And there's a reason I had BYU making the Sweet 16. I thought the Bansa would be enough to have a little bit of a run to help his stock, right? Didn't realize Texas would be the obstacle that it was, but respect to it. I kind of thought the same with Peterson as well. I thought, there's been all this talk about him throughout the regular season. I thought March was going to be the time for him to show and prove why people think that he could potentially go number 1. And not to say that he didn't show up necessarily, but they don't make it to the Sweet 16. And so Boozer, out of at least that 3, is the only one that's made it to the Sweet 16. But thoughts on the performances of those players while you also think about an Acuff as well. And if you think, one, the performances for those players that have been talked about, those top 3, if it will impact their stock at all based on what we've seen so far, and other players that might have increased their stock so far with the way they've played in the tournament up to this point.
See, I think that for AJ was kind of in the best spot of any of the top draft picks this year because I don't think there was any real way for him to hurt his stock coming into the tournament.
That's real.
I think if you look at where he was as a player, he was already leading the country in scoring. He's at this point, he's probably a lot to go number 1, right? The Darren Peterson thing at Kansas, I was out on Kansas as soon as I saw the bracket draw, just because I think it's a lot to ask of Darren Peterson, especially to basically play like half of the season and also in the games that he played, only play half of those games. And then be like, okay, tournament time, we got to hop on your back. I think that's asking a lot of any freshman, let alone him coming and battling through injury. I already said about Acuff. I think Acuff is probably having the biggest stock rise out of any of these dudes because we knew he was good. But at this point, like I said, if he doesn't go top 3, you might see some GMs lose their job because they took the wrong guy over him. But the Darren Peterson thing just give me a lot of flashbacks to Ben Simmons at LSU. Not saying that it is going to go that bad for him, because I do think that overall he's at a lot higher floor than Ben was, just with the ability to shoot and score the way that he can. Yeah. But I'm, as a GM, again, we talking about jobs being on the line. You got all these teams that have been tanking for years to get these high picks. You telling me I got to take a dude maybe number 1, 2, 3 overall, and I got half a season out of him, and I don't really know how healthy he is. it has all the recipes for a bust. Now, again, I think Darren Peterson is extremely talented. I think he's a perfect example of one of those guys who's going to just benefit from the move to the pros just because he's playing with better guys and he's got more time to work on his game. But just based on what we saw this season, that's the one guy out of all of those top guys I'm like the most nervous to draft.
I get it. Makes sense.
I'm going to be a broken record. I think Milan's a top 10 pick. I think that he is. Oh, no. Have I frozen? Oh, no. Your faces just are unamused. I believe that he is the stretch big shooter of the next draft. He's shooting a better 3-point percentage in college history than anybody. Know his name. Milan is up next. I think Iowa State has a deep push. I think that it's just the fact that they're not a Houston, like one of those like strong one seeds that I feel like this year just gets overlooked. And I think they're a dark horse too, if I'm to say anything. But jelly bean, that's all I gotta say.
And for those that don't know, I'm done questioning Miguel's thought process. I'm done disagreeing with Miguel. This guy is from the future. You got Conka Nipple right. I think you're right about Milan, and I'm just gonna say I agree.
Watch Iowa State. I'm telling you, the shot is buttery. It's got like a nice clean release. He's solid in the post. I think he's gonna player comp. I think a less athletic Lauri Markkanen. I think that's what you could. That's what you could look at him.
You know, you should probably be a scout too.
Yes,
I would love to be a scout, but I've been wrong. I've been wrong.
I just haven't seen
it. Was it not Jeff Green? Young, something Young. James, was it James Young from Kentucky?
Oh, from Kentucky, yeah.
The one that got the nice punch in March Madness, got drafted like 7th by the Celtics, and then just former Bucks Herd player, but Bucks Herd legend. That's the one. Famously wrong. Also famously wrong. Johnny Flynn.
Oh,
but that's just the injury
everybody was famously wrong.
That's tough though. Like some player, like if the majority of people were wrong, like I don't think you can count yourself wrong, because there's a lot of players that almost everybody is high on, but for whatever reason it just doesn't translate. Whether it's situation, whether it's on the player, I don't know. There's a lot of different reasons, but that's also bound to happen. I just don't think everything translates from college to NBA. And I think for a lot of guys, if they're put in the right system in the NBA and their skills translate, then we could see them be relevant, or at least see them contribute to winning. But I think you get a lot of guys that operate a certain way in college and then are brought into the NBA with bigger expectations or too large expectations too early. And it's just a flame out. You know what I'm saying? Look, I think Jahlil Okafor is another example, right? Like you get players that I don't know if you necessarily call them bust, right? Like you could, but I think it more so has to do with them just not finding the right environment in the NBA, which I think is extremely important. I think it counts for lottery picks as well, but I think that a lot of times talent alone might get you some saving grace in the sense of being able to find your spot or teams wanting to find you. But for a lot of guys, once you get out of that lottery, you got to go to the right situation and you got to be developed the right way to really see that talent translate.
If your name is Jahlil Okafor and you start your career in the process Philly and then the Pelicans early development, call it a career. You can't really do much else. You're Tyreek Evans, born on the Kings and released on the Kings. You really cannot blame anyone but the drafting gods, because that's just so unfortunate. I got drafted by Charlotte Bobcats.
Is that the same case for Nerlens Noel?
Nerlens, no, that's the story of how to mess up a bag.
Yeah, that might be Nerlens. That might be
getting 80 mil guaranteed, saying no, and then the career vet mins. That sucks. But his agent needs to be studied. Because
you kind of actually, now that Miguel mentions that, you got like 3 categories of guys, right? You got the guys that get drafted higher than they should have, had talent but went to wrong situation. You have the guys that go way lower than they absolutely should. So like Donovan Mitchell is a guy that I'm thinking of right now, where he goes like 13th, and there's really not a reason why he shouldn't have been in like the top 5, top 7. Maybe he's an inch or two too short, what have you. Okay, cool. And then you get the guys that actually land in a decent situation, and then they either have bad representation or bad decision making to where they either mess up a bag that they could have gotten, or for those who play dominoes, all money ain't good money. They go and take the wrong bag from the wrong team, and now you are, expected to be a star center when in fact you probably should just be another role player.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. I feel like that's a really good way to look at it, good tier to look at it. But yeah, I think in that regard, I'm excited for the rest of the tournament to see who else like increases their stock, because people have talked about this being a relatively deep draft, and I think the tournament will only potentially make it either one, more top heavy than it already was, or two, it'll just help contribute to how deep the draft actually is. So that'll be something that's interesting to see once the tournament wraps up and everything. And no, yeah, that's been another great episode full of analysis and accountability. Let me tell you that. But no,
That's a title.
you hear me? Yeah.
Analysis and accountability is that look, chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Just
It just comes to you. It just works that way.
Well, welcome to AA. Let's talk.
Welcome to
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wait a minute. Is that the new name?
welcome to AA.
Might be a bit triggering for
Analysis
some.
and accountability. Welcome to AA.
You know what? You're on to something.
Hey, y'all cooking with fish grease at this point.
Hey man, say man. But no, that's been an amazing episode. I'm kind of getting the feeling that we bring Josh back for the rest of March Madness. It seems like it might be only fitting.
He be
I'm
so
here.
busy nowadays. I mean, he up there.
Well, considering how Slew is no longer playing, my schedule has opened up.
Okay, all right. I don't know.
But no,
time.
as much as y'all question my availability, no, I'm here whenever y'all want to talk more March Madness, man. This has been fun. Of course, always great to join the great folks here at the Right Quality. So glad that we were able to do it again. Definitely looking forward to coming back.
Absolutely.
This coming week.
Yes, indeed, we will. Sweet 16 and Elite 8 will be a time. I can't wait to watch.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're supposed to be talking.
Everybody, he's saying Milan Beast Mode, Iowa State.
Oh, got it. Look, the man has never been wrong, so I'm rolling with him at this point.
I don't know why he's shy.
At this point, go to the chip. We'll see. But until then, it is an episode. We will all catch y'all next time, man. Peace out.